Hey Flosstube, how you guys doing? Got a little bead with me video going here. Haven't tried this before. Let's see how it goes. But first I thought I'd show you kind of what I've gotten done. I'm kind of at an exciting point. This is Maiden of Tubbataha. I've pretty much gotten to the point where I'm finished beading the lower third. So a third of the way done with the beading. Yay! So I thought I'd just go over kind of what I've done so far. And then I'll show you guys what we're going to be working on today. I'm planning on just doing one strand, because I don't want to deal with flipping everything over and re-anchoring my thread or anything like that. So, let's see here. I hear my dogs coming in. Everybody's up right now. It's daytime, so if the bird starts making noise, that could be a thing. Okay, so I was questioning whether I was going to use these beads here. Let's see if I have them laying here. Yes. So these guys, I like the colors in them, but they are really large, and they stand off the fabric a fair bit. They were called for here as well, but I decided to use these, which are a Delica, size 8 Delica. You guys can't see the number, but let me see it for you. These are, oh, it's a long one. A3271 SB. Just kind of a peacock blue iris type bead. But I like these better because they have a lower profile and they're shinier. I don't know, they just seem like they went better. But I still like these ones and wanted to use them, and I like them better when they aren't like on stitching, like when they're free on the fabric like that. I didn't mind them so much. That, and I like kind of using multiple beads just because then there's lots of fun varieties and textures. I have used these pearl beads. I was questioning whether I was going to use them or not. I decided I like them for, the pearls are in these areas, and then there's a bunch of them up here. I don't think I'm going to use the pearls for this because I think that's just going to be a little too much pearliness. I did use them in these little guys here too, which I'll show you in a minute. But I think I'm going to try and find like a large white opal for these, which that's what's called for. It's supposed to be a bead similar to Ezzy's, but it's like an opal color, but size-wise it's about this size, I think. I'm not 100% positive. But yeah, that's where we're at so far. Let me show you too. This little swag here was fun or interesting or whatever. So it's got 3 different sizes of beads in it, and that's all my fault for the most part, because if I'd used the called for, they'd all be the same size. But I kind of like the effect, you know, because it's supposed to be like this kind of messy, chunky swag, you know, of beads and stuff. For the little treasures here, I use the come up through the hole, pick up a bead, go back down method. I decided to use a pearl on the shell just because I thought that was cool. With this one, there is another bead underneath that you can't see. Here's the top one that I've anchored. There's another one underneath because this is a teardrop, so if I didn't have the bead there, it would lay down and this tip would point up, and I don't like that, so I put another bead under there just to level it out. It's a little trick I like to use. So, and then down here, I've got these fun bugle beads. Now, this one's bugging me because like they're all kind of pointing off, and then this one's that is how it's charted, but it's bugging me. So I'm probably going to frog it. Frogging beads is not fun, but I do have a lazy hack for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor my beading thread. I'm going to come up through these neighboring beads because I know I either came up or came down after this bead. I'm going to anchor them. Then I'm going to snip this one off and then probably change the angle so it's pointing down like the rest of them are, because that's just, it's just bugging me. So, but yeah, there's a nice little cheaty hack for you. Okay, so here is the beading setup. Got all my beads kind of like an artist palette in wells. So what's going to happen here, what we're working on today at least, or while I'm filming this video, is we're going to be working on this section right here. So I've already done these big fat ones here because I use a different color thread. It's right here. I used a darker color just because these beads are on the larger size, so you can kind of see the thread anchoring. Let me see if I can zoom in so you guys can see. You really can't see the anchoring thread because like the holes right there are so big that if I used white, you would see the white sticking out. But because I used a dark thread, you could probably even use black and it would be fine too. So I used a different thread and put those on already, but I'm going to be using the white or it's actually like a gray or sterling, I think it's called. I'll be using this to go up this way because the beads are on the lighter side too, so they'll blend in a little bit. But yeah, that's where we're working. And let me try and get the camera set up well. I hope I don't get my head in the way. We will try. We're just experimenting. You know, if this goes 100% wrong, then, you know, we'll just try another day, I guess. So, and again, I've never stitched with a camera on me, so this might be interesting. I'm going to try and make sure my head doesn't get in the shot. So what do you guys want to talk about? Do you guys want to talk about beading, or, you know, a lot of stitch with me, people just talk about randomness. So, and I'm definitely stitching slower because I'm trying not to shake the camera and I'm trying not to get in the way. But, yeah, and this is longer than I usually have my beading thread. I don't know. Sometimes I'll, like, if I have a goal to get to a certain point, I'll use a little bit more just because I like to flip things over as little as possible. But with beading, I like to, I like to do the cross method. So I like my beads to lay straight so that they match the stitching. I don't like seeing them at an angle. That bothers me. If that's the way you like doing it, you do you. But I also tend to stitch the bead on the way I cross my threads. Which I think helps if you frog any beading, because then you know which thread goes where. I also think having kind of a consistent anchoring technique helps keep your tension consistent. Gosh, I am kind of holding my hand a little funny. If you're looking at me like, what the hell is she doing? It's like, oh, it's because there's a camera in my way. So, what we going to talk about today? What you guys want to talk about? I do have some fun stories we can talk about. I could talk about the field course in marine ecology that I took when I was working on my bachelor's degree. My bachelor's degree is in kinesiology, which is the study of human movement. But at one point I really wanted to be a marine biologist, but then I had kids, so I couldn't do that. So when I ended up going back for my bachelor's, I ended up minoring in oceanography, just so I could kind of get to experience the dream a little bit. Now here's the fun part I like about beading, is with beading you can jump around colors. So that part's fun. But anyways, back to this story. So for my minor in oceanography, we took a field course in the Florida Keys and the Bahamas. And it was 2 weeks, and we went snorkeling for hours every day, which was awesome. We snorkeled in the mangroves, which was really cool. We snorkeled at John Pennington, I think, Coral Marine Park there. The Florida Keys, I think, is the 3rd largest coral reef in the world. Which, you know, like, corals are kind of at risk, so even though I would say the Florida Keys is not the most amazingly glorious coral that you've ever seen, it was still really cool. But let's see here. We also then took a flight to the Bahamas. Now you're thinking, ooh, Bahamas, which this was interesting because this was my school was a very liberal arts school. They really kind of pushed like a liberal education. So they really wanted you to take like international courses. So they had a lot of them, but a lot of people that were on this course with me were not science majors. Some of them I know were studying real estate or something like that. But it was just kind of funny. Sometimes it's hard seeing where I'm going down here just because the fabric's dark, and you have to be careful when you're using a beading needle because the beading needle's so sharp you can pierce the threads, and then your beads are going to be wonky, so I try to be careful about that. But anyways, there was definitely some college kids there looking to party in the Bahamas, but what was funny about that was it's not like we were at like Nassau, you know, like the touristy areas. We were on San Salvador, which allegedly is the island where Christopher Columbus made landfall. I say allegedly because, let's face it, that dude was freaking lost. So it's a small island. It's not for tourism for the most part. It's not developed or anything. And it's very, I mean, there were some really nice beaches here and there, but, you know, it wasn't like paradise, you know, like what you like, palm trees everywhere. It was more very natural. I think most of the palm trees in the Bahamas have been planted, if you want to know my opinion on that. But, so there was a lot of college kids who were like, oh yeah, party. And then they showed up and they're like, oh my God, we have to like sit in like a lab and we have to like collect specimens of sea plants and identify them. We had to take a test on identifying corals. That one was really fun. But yeah, the non-sciencey kids had a lot of fun with the scientific names for that. And then we had to take a test on identifying fish, tropical marine fish, so that was fun. We had to do a research project, and we could pick pretty much any topic. Oh, this is one of the things about, I'm hooked on my I have a needle down here straightening up some of my threads, and I got hooked on it, so that's annoying. But I lost my train of thought there. We had to do a research topic on, we could pick whatever we wanted for the most part, but it had to be something, you know, marine based, I guess you'd say. And I wanted to do sharks, but we had like, before the trip, we had like this meeting at the teacher's house. I know that sounds kind of weird, but they had this huge plot of land because the teacher was, gosh, what was he? I would classify him as a marine biologist, and then his wife was like a botanist, so they were very rugged, and they had a huge plot of land. So we went to their house because we were discussing, like, this is what's going to go on for the trip, this is the things you need to pack, these are what you expect, blah, 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 blah. And we had to do our research project, and we had to basically have it ready for the trip because we had to do a PowerPoint presentation once we were down on the site. So I was, let's see, I think I was 30 something, and all my other, well, not all my other classmates, majority of my other classmates were, you know, college age. So I had to work, and I ran to this meeting after work. So I was the last sucker there, and everybody had already like picked like, oh, I'm going to do it on this. And they said that you could do the same as someone else, but they kind of really wanted you to not do that. So someone had already said they wanted to do sharks, which I think they didn't even, like, whoever picked sharks ended up not even presenting it. So that was kind of annoying. And I was like, man, I really wanted to do sharks. You know, that's like my jam. And they were like, well, you still can if you want. But if you wanted, they suggested, since I'm a kinesiology major, they're like, maybe you can do it on something relating to your major. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So I did my research presentation on locomotion of aquatic animals, and oh my God, it was fascinating, really fascinating. But anyways, I digress. Let's get into some more storytelling. So the trip starts out, and we had to fly to Fort Lauderdale. I had a friend at the time that had moved to Orlando with his girlfriend. He and I used to work together, and they moved to Florida because she was trying to be a Disney princess, which was kind of cool. So I ended up stopping there on the way to Fort Lauderdale. So I flew to Orlando, then I picked up a rental car at the Orlando airport and drove it to the Fort Lauderdale airport. If I recall, that was like a 3-hour drive or something. Not bad. But we met up in Fort Lauderdale, and we met up at a hotel, and we had kind of a little meet and greet, and they had us do like, what are 3 animals that you really want to see? And if I recall correctly, the majority, a lot of people wanted to see sharks. Some people definitely did not want to see sharks. A lot of people wanted to see seahorses, which I don't think anybody saw a seahorse. Someone else wanted to see dolphins. We did see dolphins. Someone wanted to see manatees. We did see manatees. I think I remembered saying kind of a collective alligator crocodile, which was funny because we did go to the Everglades too, because that's, you know, coastal marine ecology for the most part. And this was my first time going to the Everglades. I've been back there since. And I was all, yeah, we're going to the Everglades. I'm going to see gators on top of gators on top of gators. We saw 2 gators, and they were both juvenile. So they were just either hiding really well. That, and I can't remember what time of year it was either. I think it was really, yeah, it was definitely really hot. It was summertime. So they were probably all submerged, you know, because when it gets that hot, they're like, peace out, I'm going underwater. So that and gators are so good at camouflaging. We probably looked at, you know, 100 of them and didn't even see them. So, because they can be very, very still. Okay, I've just been kind of chatting and not even paying attention to where I'm going. Okay, I see where I'm going. Cool. I at least knew, that's one thing I like about beading. I'm pretty much just following where the little empty holes are, you know, so I don't even have to count, you know. It's like, oh, I've got my pathway pretty much already laid out for me. That's why I like beading so much. I mean, it is kind of nerve-wracking getting to it, because once I have the beading down, it makes me like so happy, because I love all the textures of the beads and the sparkle of it. I really want to get to it quickly, but it's so much easier if I wait to do the cross-stitching first. That way I don't have to count while I'm beading. So, but anyways, back to the trip. So the next morning, Fort Lauderdale, we had a place in Key Largo, which is the very top of the Florida Keys. Another color change here. Actually, is that the right? Yes, this is the right color. This is my bubble color. So, which is funny, because when me and my son went to Florida, I think I was floss tubing. It was last year. We went to the Florida Keys, and I remember when I was looking for hotels, I did see the one that we stayed at there, and kind of was like, yeah, we're not staying there. The beds were kind of which, you know, it was a college trip, so they were trying to save some money by, you know, we weren't staying in like luxurious places or anything, but they were all like dive resort type places too. And the nice thing was there was like an area behind, it was on the Florida Bay side of the Keys, not the Atlantic side. So it was very calm. The sunsets were really nice, and there was like I wouldn't call it a beach. It's not like, oh, relax, lay on the beach kind of thing. But they had like an entry to the water where we could go snorkeling and stuff like that. And there was a kind of a covered like picnic type area right out on the water, which was so picturesque and idyllic. And we did a lot of PowerPoint presentations there. I didn't do mine there. But it was like, oh, this is so nice, so cool. Well, the mosquitoes thought it was really nice and cool too. And man, I got eaten alive. I tell you, I've traveled to Asia. I've been in Singapore. I've been in Bali. I've been in Thailand. I've been in Cambodia. I've been to Egypt. I've never been eaten alive by more mosquitoes than I did that trip. And because of that, I remember telling my son, like, we are not going in, I think it was it June or July? Like, we are not going in June and July, because I am not getting carried away by Jurassic mosquitoes again. Oh my God, I got eaten alive. Like, I'm spraying bug spray on me. There's mosquitoes on me, and they're like laughing at me, like taking a shower in it. Like, oh, you know, like, come at me, fool. Like, this tickles. And my only sanctuary was when there were dragonflies around, because the dragonflies would eat the mosquitoes. Like, I wanted to catch a dragonfly and put a leash on him and keep him with me at all times, because that was the only time I found relief from the mosquitoes. But anyways, we then, like, I remember one of our first days, we went snorkeling right outside where we were staying. And it wasn't like awesome snorkeling. It was, you know, very estuary, if you're familiar with that term. It was like where the mangroves were meeting the ocean, and there was a lot of grass, you know, and it didn't look like, oh, you can hear my bird firing off. She hears me talking. But it wasn't like blue Bahama water, white sand, you know, like kind of an idyllic, you know, kind of snorkel spot. It was more like kind of grass and stuff. That, and there were barracuda in there. I am not a fan of barracuda, because they just look like they want to fuck you up. And I did get chumped by one on this trip, which I'll tell you about. But during that first snorkel, it was fun, because I found myself a puffer fish, and he was so cute because he had these gigantic bug eyes. So I followed him around for a little while, and oh my God, he was so cute. And what's interesting about this particular snorkel was I received my first jellyfish sting. And at first I didn't know it was happening, because in the Florida Keys, there is a jellyfish known as the upside down jellyfish. Kind of sits on the bottom and looks like an anemone, but it's actually a jellyfish. It can swim a little bit, but for the most part they sit on the bottom with their tendrils sticking up, kind of like a anemone. And I'm swimming around and I felt something get me on my neck, and I was wearing a necklace, and I thought, like, it felt like the chain of my necklace had caught a hair and pulled it out. So that was, I started rubbing at it and was like, well, then it was like, it's still burning a little bit. And I was like, what the heck? Well, then something got me on my belly, and I'm like, what the heck? And then, like, I'm feeling like I'm having an individual hair picked out, like, all over the place. And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but something's getting me, So I start heading back in, and I popped my head up, and I saw everybody getting out of the water. And I was like, what is going on? And everybody was reporting the same thing, like, something's getting me. And according to our teachers, I need to switch my chart because I hit the end of the page. Here we go. Ta-da-da. Let me anchor everything. Sorry, I know you guys see the thing shaking, but you don't see any action. I'm just moving the chart. Okay, there we go. So when we all got out of the water, we said something to our teachers, like, something's getting us. And basically they said the upside down jellyfish, if they are disturbed, which a lot of these people had never ever snorkeled before, so they were like churning up everything, they weren't really being very courteous, that there's someone snorkeling behind you and please don't kick the silt up. So these upside down jellyfish were being kicked about. And apparently they can release their stinging cells, which, if I recall, are called neomatocysts. They can release their individual stinging cells into the water. So we were hitting those cells, not necessarily the jellyfish themselves. And so that's what was happening there. And it was funny because when my son and I went to Key Largo this last year, we stayed at a place that had a similar setup in the back, and there were people that were reporting the same, like, oh my god, something's getting me. And I'm like, you're kicking up the upside down jellyfish. So that was kind of funny. But that was my first jellyfish sting. I did also get stung by a jellyfish in Bali. That one got me better. Like, it actually left like the tendril marks on my leg. Yeah, sucker. It was a little one too. He's kind of cute. He was like a squishy. But so after that, let's see, we flew to the Bahamas. And again, we flew, I think, to Nassau, and then we got to San Salvador. Tiniest little airport I've ever been in. Like, basically it was a shack, for the most part. So that was funny. And then I remember the very first day. Okay, so this is when I got jumped by a barracuda. Not like attacked or anything, but like too close of an encounter for my liking. So we get to, I call it the compound, because basically it was an abandoned Navy compound, and it was for classes on marine biology, archaeology, and geology. I think there was another ology in there too, but I can't remember which one it was. And so we get there, and we'd been traveling all day, and our instructors are like, okay, here's the plan. We're going to meet at this time. You guys can either take a nap, you can go snorkeling, la la la, do whatever you want, blah blah blah, meet at this time. Well, pretty much everyone was like, I'm gonna take a nap. Well, at least the girls, at least. And I had seen the water there, and it was the blue Bahama water, and I was like, I'm going to the water, because my thoughts are like, I'm not going to go take a nap and then go and get dirty. I'm like, I'm going to go get dirty, then get clean, and then take a nap. That was my thinking. So I go down there, and it turned out I was the only girl. There was actually like 50-50 boys and girls on this trip. I was the only girl down there. And so we get into the water, and I'm swimming with a bunch of dudes, and they're doing the whole, let's see how far out we can go, which it's like, I'm not opposed to an adventure or anything, but also while I'm swimming, I want to see cool shit, because I had my face in the water. I'm snorkeling. Also, I saw a gigantic barracuda. There was this one boat that was like buoyed to like an anchored buoy or something, and this big 5-foot barracuda was just chilling under it, and I was like, I am not going that way, because like I said, I don't like barracuda. They just have an evil face. So I'm swimming with these dudes, and they're like, let's see how far out we can go. And I was looking, and I'm like, there's nothing interesting to look at. There's no coral. There's like no fish other than that giant ass barracuda. So I'm like, I'm not wanting to swim just for, you know, the hell of it. So I was like, you know, guys, I'm gonna go back closer to shore, and I'm gonna look for something interesting, you know. That, and like a dark cloud came over the sky, and we were in deeper water, and the water got dark, you know. So I was like, you know, I have a healthy appreciation for what's in this ocean. I'm not a scaredy cat, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I don't know how far out you guys are going, and I don't know that I want to follow you. So I'm like, I'm just gonna head back. So I was swimming alone, and I was in about 10 feet of water, and finally I see a little fish. So I'm like, oh, cool, little fish. Let me kind of just swim in his general direction. Next thing I know, this freaking, oh crap, I just lost my thread. Crap, this is not going to be fun to do on camera, but let's try. So next thing I know, this, not huge, but, you know, big enough, 2.5 foot maybe. I might be exaggerating, at least 2 feet though. Barracuda flies over my right shoulder and tries to eat the fish that I was watching. And that fish darts away. And the barracuda, seeing the fish dart away, now starts looking at me and is swimming parallel to me. He was close enough that if I reached out to touch him, I could not quite touch him, but I was close enough to see his eye moving and looking at me. And I'm like, you just tried to eat something, and now you're looking at me. And my mantra was, go away, go away, go away, go away. And he's flanking me. And I had heard that barracuda are weird in that if you approach them, they'll back away. But sometimes if you move away, they'll move closer to you. So I wasn't moving away from him, because if I moved away from him and saw him move towards me, I was going to freak out. So I was like, maintain course and heading. Go away, go away, go away. Finally, he moseys off, and I'm like, oh. And my instinct was to get the hell out of the water. But I thought, you know, I don't want to leave the water scared, because then it's going to be harder to get back in it. So I thought, just continue on. Just continue on. It's fine. You're fine. Everything's fine. And then I came across another barracuda. This one was smaller. But when I came across another one, and I'm like still in the water by myself. And at this point, though, I was close enough to shore that I saw some feet. And turns out some of the girls had came down, and they're just kind of standing in the water like, oh, this is so nice, Bahamas, yay. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to head towards them and let them know that this area is infested with barracuda. And it was funny because hardly anyone else in my class saw barracuda. I kept running into them, non-ending. Oh my God. I was like, oh, leave me alone. Not a fan. Okay, so I've hit the point where it's getting hard to stitch because my thread's getting so low. But that's what I've got done in that time frame there. I hope that story was regaling for you. I do have some more fun stories from that trip too if you want to hear some more later. But I'm going to basically anchor my thread. First thing I do is I pick up my little bead pots and I move them off. I am planning on making something to hold my bead pots. Basically, I bought like these little pieces of wood. And I'm going to glue these on here and put a magnet on it. That way it kind of holds my palette, because they do kind of slide around on the fabric a little bit, and that gets a little bit annoying. So I'm going to make something to kind of like a bead palette minder, basically. But yeah. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!